Evelyn thought she had found the kind of love people spend a lifetime searching for. Daniel was charming, polite, and thoughtful. He never forgot birthdays, always opened doors for strangers, and smiled with such warmth that everyone trusted him instantly. Friends called him the perfect husband. Neighbors admired the couple. Even Evelyn's parents believed she had married the gentlest man in town. But appearances can be carefully crafted, and sometimes the brightest smile hides the darkest heart. The first year of their marriage felt like a dream. Daniel filled their home with flowers, cooked candlelit dinners, and constantly told Evelyn how lucky he was to have her. Whenever they attended family gatherings, he wrapped his arm around her shoulder and praised her in front of everyone. "You are my whole world," he would whisper. She believed every word. Slowly, little things began to change. Daniel started deciding what she should wear because he claimed certain clothes attracted the wrong attention. He discouraged her from visiting old friends, insisting they didn't truly care about her. He criticized her choices so gently that she questioned herself instead of him. "I'm only trying to protect you," he always said. Whenever Evelyn felt hurt, Daniel apologized with expensive gifts and emotional speeches. He cried, promised to change, and somehow convinced her that every misunderstanding was her fault. Months passed, and Evelyn became quieter. She smiled less. She stopped painting, something she had loved since childhood. The cheerful woman everyone once knew slowly disappeared. Across the street lived an elderly widow named Margaret. She noticed everything. Margaret often saw Evelyn sitting alone on the porch with tired eyes while Daniel was at work. One afternoon she carried over a basket of fresh bread. "I baked too much," she said with a smile. The two women began talking regularly. Margaret never judged or pushed for answers. She simply listened. One afternoon she gently asked, "When was the last time you laughed without worrying what someone would think?" The question caught Evelyn by surprise. She couldn't remember. That evening Daniel returned home angry because dinner wasn't ready exactly on time. He didn't shout. Instead, he spent hours reminding Evelyn how much he sacrificed for her and how disappointing she had become. By bedtime, she was apologizing. Again. Weeks later, Margaret invited Evelyn to help organize donations at the local community center. Daniel objected immediately. "You don't need strangers filling your head with nonsense." But Margaret personally visited their house and convinced Daniel it was only a few hours of volunteer work. Reluctantly, he agreed. At the community center Evelyn met people from every walk of life. Some had escaped difficult relationships. Others had rebuilt their lives after heartbreaking experiences. She listened to their stories. For the first time, she heard words like manipulation, emotional abuse, and control. The stories sounded painfully familiar. One volunteer, a retired counselor named Grace, noticed Evelyn's silence. "You deserve kindness that doesn't disappear behind closed doors," Grace quietly said. Those words echoed in Evelyn's mind for days. Daniel became increasingly controlling after noticing her growing confidence. He checked her phone, questioned every conversation, and accused her of betrayal whenever she disagreed with him. Still, in public he remained the perfect gentleman. Nobody suspected anything. One rainy afternoon Evelyn accidentally found a small journal hidden inside Daniel's office drawer. She wasn't searching for secrets. She had only been looking for a pen. Inside were pages describing how he deliberately isolated her from friends, how he enjoyed making people depend on him, and how maintaining a perfect public image made him feel powerful. One sentence froze her. "People believe whatever I show them. That's why no one will ever believe her." Her hands trembled. Everything suddenly made sense. The gifts. The apologies. The endless guilt. None of it had been love. It had all been control. That evening Margaret noticed Evelyn crying on the porch. Without asking questions, she simply held her hand. "You are not alone," she whispered. Those 4 words gave Evelyn more strength than years of empty promises. With Margaret's support and guidance from Grace, Evelyn quietly created a plan. She gathered important documents. She contacted trusted relatives. She saved enough money to leave safely. One morning while Daniel was away on a business trip, she packed a single suitcase. She looked around the house that had once represented her dream. Now it felt like a prison. She closed the front door behind her without looking back. Daniel returned to an empty home. His calls went unanswered. His messages became desperate, then angry, then threatening. But Evelyn never returned. She moved to another town where she stayed with family while rebuilding her life. Healing wasn't quick. Years of manipulation had left invisible scars. Some mornings she doubted herself. Some nights she wondered whether she had imagined everything. Whenever those thoughts appeared, Margaret called to remind her how far she had come. "You escaped," she would say. "Never forget your courage." Evelyn slowly rediscovered herself. She painted again. She laughed freely. She made new friends who valued honesty instead of control. Eventually she began volunteering at the same kind of community center that had changed her own life. Whenever someone arrived feeling broken, ashamed, or trapped, Evelyn welcomed them with gentle understanding. She never forced advice. She simply listened, just as Margaret had listened to her. One afternoon a frightened young woman quietly admitted, "Everyone thinks my husband is wonderful. Maybe the problem is me." Evelyn smiled with compassion. "No," she answered softly. "Kindness never makes you afraid to be yourself." The young woman burst into tears. It was the first step toward her own freedom. Years later, Margaret attended an art exhibition featuring Evelyn's paintings. One canvas showed a small bird leaving an open cage while sunlight filled the sky. The title read, "The Day I Remembered Who I Was." Margaret stood silently before it, tears filling her eyes. She realized that real kindness isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it is a loaf of homemade bread. Sometimes it is listening without judgment. Sometimes it is believing someone when the whole world believes the mask instead. Daniel had looked like the perfect husband, but beneath the polished smile lived cruelty and manipulation. His greatest weapon had been deception. Yet genuine kindness proved stronger than evil. One compassionate neighbor, one patient listener, and one safe place gave Evelyn the courage to reclaim her life. Because true love never controls. True love never destroys confidence. And real kindness has the power to rescue a soul that has almost forgotten what freedom feels like.